vibrant city of Lagos, there lived a young girl named Dorcas. She was born into a wealthy family, blessed with every comfort a child could ask for. Her parents, successful businesspeople, ensured that she lacked for nothing. Yet, despite her luxurious life, Dorcas's fondest memories were the summers she spent in her grandparents' village. The village was a world away from Lagos, peaceful with sprawling farmlands, quiet evenings, and the soothing sound of crickets at night. Dorcas adored her grandparents. Her grandmother, Mama Ajoke, was a skilled storyteller who would sit by the fire at night, weaving tales of wonder and warning. Among all the stories, one stuck with Dorcas, the tale of the cursed mirror. Dorcas, her grandmother, began one night, her voice low and serious as the fire crackled between them. "You must never look into a mirror at night. Do you hear me?" Dorcas, wide-eyed and curious, asked, "Why, Grandma? What happens if I do?" Mama Ajoke leaned closer, her face lit eerily by the dancing flames. "Long ago, when our ancestors traded their brothers and sisters to the white men in exchange for trinkets and riches, one of the most coveted items was the mirror. At the time, no one here had ever seen their full reflection. The mirrors seemed magical, but those who were taken, our kin, were enraged by the betrayal. They cursed the mirrors as their spirits were dragged into them, trapped forever. Now, their spirits lie in wait, restless and vengeful. If you look into a mirror at night, when the boundary between worlds is weakest, you invite them into our world. They bring disaster, Dorcas. Spirits do not forgive easily." Dorcas shivered, glancing nervously at the small, ornate mirror on the wall of the hut. From that day on, she always avoided mirrors at night, no matter how curious she felt. When her grandparents passed away years later, Dorcas was heartbroken. Their home in the village was left empty, and she no longer visited. But the memories of those nights by the fire, the tales of Mama Ajoke, stayed with her as she grew into a confident young woman. Back in Lagos, Dorcas became the life of every gathering. She loved telling her friends the stories her grandmother had shared. The tale of the cursed mirror was her favorite. Her friends often teased her about it. "Dorcas, you're too grown to believe such nonsense," her friend Ada said one evening as they sat in Dorcas's spacious bedroom, a large mirror mounted on the wall behind them. "It's not nonsense," Dorcas insisted, her voice firm. "My grandmother never lied to me. The spirits in the mirrors are real." Chinyu, another friend, laughed. "Then prove it. Let's try it out. Let's look into the mirror at midnight and see if anything happens." Dorcas hesitated. "I don't think we should. Some stories are better left alone." But the others wouldn't relent, teasing her about being scared. Eventually, Dorcas, not wanting to seem cowardly, agreed. As the clock struck midnight, the girls gathered in Dorcas's room. The lights turned off, and only the faint glow of the moon illuminating the space. They sat in front of the large mirror, their reflections barely visible in the dim light. "All right, let's do this," Ada said, her voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. Dorcas took a deep breath, her grandmother's warning echoing in her mind. Never look into a mirror at night. But here she was, an adult now, telling herself it was just a story. The girls stared into the mirror, their reflections gazing back at them. For a moment, nothing happened. Ada laughed nervously. "See? It's just a story. Nothing." Before she could finish her sentence, the room grew unnaturally cold. A faint whisper filled the air, soft at first but growing louder. The reflections in the mirror began to change. the girls' faces twisted and distorted, replaced by shadowy, unfamiliar figures with hollow eyes and expressions of rage. "Did you betray us too?" a voice hissed, low and menacing. The girls screamed, scrambling away from the mirror, but their reflections did not move. Instead, the figures in the mirror pressed their ghostly hands against the glass, as though trying to break through. "Dorcas," one of the spirits growled, its voice echoing. "You were warned. You knew better." Terrified, Dorcas fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." The room shook, and the mirror cracked, a jagged line splitting through its surface. The spirits vanished, leaving the girls in terrified silence. Ada clutched Dorcas's arm. What was that?" Dorcas, still trembling, whispered, I told you this wasn't a game." The next morning, the mirror was gone. In its place was a faint, dark mark on the wall, as though the mirror had burned away. But the story didn't end there. Strange things began happening in Dorcas's home. Lights flickered, whispers echoed in empty rooms, and shadows seemed to move on their own. Dorcas realized the spirits hadn't left. They were watching, waiting, and now she had to find a way to undo what had been done, or risk unleashing the curse not just on herself, but on everyone she cared about. Days after the terrifying encounter, Dorcas could not shake the feeling of guilt and dread. The spirits had been clear. They were angry because she had ignored her grandmother's warnings. Now strange things were happening in her home. Shadows that moved without a source, faint whispers in the dead of night, and a cold chill that never left her room. Even her friends, Ada and Chinyu, refused to visit anymore, frightened by the lingering presence of something unnatural. Dorcas knew that she had to fix what she had done. The spirits were restless, and their anger had been awakened. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Spirits do not forgive easily. Dorcas realized that she couldn't simply avoid the situation. She had to confront it. She had to summon them again and plead her case. That night, alone in her room, Dorcas retrieved a small shard of the broken mirror she had discarded after the incident. She sat on her bed, clutching the cold piece of glass in her trembling hands. The moonlight streaming through her window cast an eerie glow on the shard, and for a moment, she hesitated. Could she really face them again? What if they were beyond reasoning? But Dorcas steeled herself. She had to try. Holding the shard tightly, she whispered, "I didn't mean to offend you. I just want to make things right." She stared into the shard, her reflection barely visible. First, there was silence. Then, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and the whispers began. From the shard, the distorted faces of the spirits emerged once more, their hollow eyes filled with anger and sorrow. This time, the largest of them, a tall, shadowy figure with an aura of power, stepped forward. His voice was deep and resonant, echoing through the room like thunder. "You dare summon us again?" he growled. "Do you think we are your playthings?" Dorcas's hands shook, but she held the shard firmly, refusing to look away. "Please listen to me," she pleaded. "I didn't mean to disrespect you. It was just an experiment, a foolish mistake. I am not one of those who betrayed you. I am not one of the ones who sold you into slavery." The spirits murmured among themselves, their voices like a storm brewing in the distance. The tall figure loomed closer, his face inches from the shard. "You are not one of them," he said slowly, "but you carry their blood. Your people's betrayal runs through your veins. I didn't choose my ancestry, Dorcas said, her voice breaking. "I didn't choose what happened, but I want to make amends. Tell me what I can do to bring you peace." For a moment, the spirits were silent. Then, the tall figure reached out, his ghostly hand stretching from the shard. Dorcas flinched but did not let go. The hand wrapped around her neck, its grip icy and unyielding. "You want to make amends?" the spirit hissed. "Then come with us. Face the pain of those who came before you. Feel what they felt." Before Dorcas could protest, the spirit's grip tightened, and she felt herself being pulled forward. Her body was lifted off the bed as the shard began to glow with an otherworldly light. She screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the howling wind that filled the room. In an instant, Dorcas was dragged into the shard, disappearing into its depths. The shard fell to the floor with a faint clang, lying still and cold. The room was eerily silent, as if nothing had happened. When Dorcas's parents returned home the next morning, they found her room empty. Her bed was unmade, her belongings untouched, and the shard of the mirror lay on the floor. They called her friends, neighbors, and even the police, but no one had seen or heard from Dorcas. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Rumors began to spread. Some said she had run away. Others whispered that she had fallen victim to something unnatural. Only Ada and Chinyu knew the truth, but they dared not speak of it, fearing the spirit's wrath. Over time, strange things began happening in the house. Mirrors cracked without reason. Shadows moved where there was no light, and faint whispers echoed in the empty rooms. Dorcas's parents, unable to bear the eerie occurrences, eventually moved out, leaving the house abandoned. Inside the mirror's realm, Dorcas found herself in a vast, shadowy expanse. The spirits surrounded her, their faces twisted with pain and anger. She felt their sorrow, their betrayal, their endless torment. "You wanted to make amends," the tall spirit said. "Now you will bear witness to our suffering." Dorcas was forced to relive their memories. The chains, the whips, the betrayal by their own people, and the despair of being torn from their homes. The pain was overwhelming, but she endured it, hoping that by understanding their agony, she could help them find peace. Dorcas's story does not end here. Did she find a way to appease the spirits and return to the living world? Or did she remain trapped, becoming one of the restless souls in the cursed mirror? And what of the shard left behind in her room? Would it draw someone else into the spirit's realm? The tale of Dorcas and the cursed mirror became a warning for all who heard it, a reminder that some stories are not mere legends, and that the past, no matter how buried, can still reach into the present.